off with that, and maybe I can pass the baton over to Becky.
Yeah, sure. So a little bit about me. I am a, let's say, 30-something, slightly later 30-something person who lives in the UK and England. And I adored horses when I was younger, and I spent all of my time at the stables and so on. And then they kind of fell out of my life. I went off to university, and, you know, horses are an expensive hobby to have. And I stopped riding. And about 16 or 17 years later, I finally found horses again. And so I couldn't believe that I'd managed to survive so long without having that passion in my life. You know, it's just this, you know, it brings this completeness. It's almost like a meditation to me, like it's my happy place, which I go to anytime I spend with horses. And part of that, living in London and being the only horsey person I knew, meant that I kind of needed some sort of an outlet for my horsiness. And there's only so much that someone's husband who has no interest in horses at all can put up with. So that's why I ended up starting the blog, Back in the Saddle. And from that, I ended up talking about, you know, the challenges of going back to riding after a decade in a desk job, and, you know, how to find places to ride in London when you don't have your own horse. And as part of that, you know, I was on social media and just found this amazing community of horsey people. And it's all kind of grown from there. So that's me, really.
I'm a huge fan of Becky's. I've been following her blog for so long, and she's also like part of Team Cavago as an ambassador. So I'm a huge fan. Yeah. So maybe so Becky and Barbara, since we're going alphabetically, tell us about yourself.
Okay, so I'm a Portuguese photographer. I own Equestrians. I don't know if you can see the name somewhere, but yes.
Yes,
I can.
yes.
I used to ride since I was 7. I used to live in the city, so as Becky said, it was very expensive to ride there. So when I was 19, I said to my mother, whether you like it or not, I'm going to our grandma's house in the countryside. So I could afford the horses and everything. It would be easier. And after that, I started getting to know a lot of people around the horse world. And I had the opportunity to make a tour in 2014 around Europe. And that's when I was falling totally in love with the horse world. And since I always liked photography, I decided to join the both of them. And me and my best friend, in 2018, decided to create Equestrians because we had the horses in common. She was from Spain, and Lusitano was our passion. And of course, we have already spoken about Lusitano all day long. And
yes, we have.
And I think people understand why. And so from that to where we are now at Equestrians, it was like very, very quick. So.
Well, Barbara, I've seen your photography, especially the shots by the beach. And I even love your logo, I must say. So it's really a privilege to have you here.
Thank you so much.
And we have another kindred spirit with you, another world-renowned horse photographer. He'll introduce himself later on, before we get an introduction from, say, Kristine and Krystal. So if you go alphabetically, I think Kristine comes before Krystal.
Yeah, go for it.
Hi, everybody.
Hi.
Oh, my first cup of coffee here on the West Coast. So I'm Kristine, and I'm Ms. Mike's ears. And
Kristine, you need to make yourself louder.
Louder? Okay.
We can't hear you well. We hear you, but not well enough.
Not well enough? Okay. Hang on.
I did put my volume up, and then Caroline spoke, and I had to fix it again.
Yeah. No, it's not. It's not the system. It's her headset, I think.
Is it?
Do you want to
slightly
speak?
better?
Is that better?
Slightly.
Slightly. You know what? Maybe I'll just use the earbuds.
Okay, try that.
Me now?
Yeah.
Oh, that is super clear.
Wow.
Oh, that better?
Huge difference.
Wow. Let me turn the volume down a bit.
Oh.
Okay.
No, just kidding.
Yeah,
You're good. You're good.
that's so funny because the earbuds were so loud in my head. It's like, oh my God. Anyway,
This works perfectly for everyone.
okay, good.
Yeah.
And hopefully my dog won't burst in here and our security system, but I think I've got her in the other room. So anyway, I kind of like Becky was saying, I went off to college. I rode as a kid. I grew up in Eastern Oregon for the most part, and kind of knocked around on a cattle ranch for a while, and went to college, and you're broke.
Yeah.
Oh, can you move to the city? And so it wasn't even an option to have horses. So I didn't get back into them until I was in my 40s, mid 40s. Actually, I got my first horse, and then I was just over the moon about it. So excited. So and that was probably about the time when the iPhones came out. So I just started, clicking pictures everywhere, and we live in a really picturesque island here near Seattle. So, it was just so fun to go out and just take pictures. And we live right across this 235 acres of trails and parks on the bluff. So I'm really, really lucky. And it's a big equestrian community here on Vashon Island. So everybody just really embraced me on the island, and we've got a couple really great trainers on the island. So I've been really fortunate and able to keep, my horses here at our own house. And so I started, sharing my photos on Facebook, and then, everybody was cheering me on. And so then they started sending me all their photos, like, oh, here's mine. And it was really fun. So I started, seeing them just from around our area. And then, as your Facebook kind of family grows from all over the country, it's like people kept sending them. And I said, okay, well, let's start a page. And so I did that. And then, so then I started sharing other people's photos. And then I got on Instagram, and it was like, oh my God, this is like the Mecca, because this is where all the visuals are. It was just like so much better than Facebook. And because there were so many fabulous photos. So I thought, everybody's photos are so much better than mine. Let's, people need to see these. So I just started reaching out, and it was really fun. It was like, oh, look, I have all these new friends now, because we just would chat, and I was like, well, where is it? I didn't even know where, a lot of these places were. So I'd get on, Google everything. I was like, well, where's that? Or what kind of building is that? Just out of my own curiosity. And so I just started including a little bit of information with each shot, just because it was, interesting for me. So I figured it might be interesting for other people. So it just kind of, grew from there. And my friends used to, in the beginning, used to really tease me, because they'd start sending me all my non-horse friends. It's like, oh, here's mine, my Life Between the Beers section from the pub, So like, cheers. And then my friends would send, their Life Between the Gears, and their, biking. And then another one, on the boats, and Life Between the Piers. And so it's like, oh my God, Life Between the Rears. And so one day I did, I took, a spin off from the first logo I did, and I did the ponytail. And so I did start a separate page for that too, for carriage and driving horses, but it's sort of like the stepchild. It doesn't get much love. So, but I did start that too, which is pretty fun. It's not enough hours in the day. If I didn't have to sleep, I could keep up with it all, because there's just like such a backlog of images that need to be shared still.
That's such a cool story. I just love the analogy, Life Between the Ears. It gives you this visual picture of what we all just yearn to see. It's fascinating.
Yeah.
Cool. So Krystal, I love your work.
Yeah.
I love your work. I've gone through your booklet on on all the different places that you recommend. I think it's absolutely fascinating. So tell us more.
Yeah, there's too many countries and not enough time to see them all.
Oh, you got it. You got it.
Yeah, so that's definitely one of my goals in life. So I actually, I didn't have horses growing up, and I always wanted to work internationally with horses. I always wanted to be a show jumper, like rider, coach, and all that. So that's what I did, and I was working with a lot of professionals. And I ended up, over the past 10 years, I left America in 2010 and to start my life internationally. And it wasn't until, like, I don't know, I had worked in maybe 10 countries or something. And I just kind of was like, you know, I could keep doing this forever. I just keep traveling around and riding horses. So I definitely was bitten by the travel bug. Like, I always wanted to see just like all of the places like most people don't want to see. I'm like, I have to go there. And there's no better way of seeing like the off the beaten track places than on horseback. But yeah, so I founded Equestrian Adventuresses. It's only been like a year, to be honest. And we have like a Prime series and, you know, books and all kinds of, you know, we have a podcast and a YouTube and all of these things. And I, you know, created a Facebook group, and it just kind of through word of mouth got a lot of people in there, and they're always sharing their adventures. And it's funny, like I don't want to be the face of Equestrian Adventuresses actually. So I love looking at other people's things. And so that's sort of why Equestrian Adventuresses came to be. It's a tribe for women who love horses, travel, and adventure. So when I was traveling around, hi, Jose. But when I was traveling around, I, you know, like for example, I went to Greenland, and it's a woman and her husband. They actually started a riding program in Greenland, and most people don't even know, like, you can ride horses in Greenland. What, with icebergs? And, you know, her story was so fascinating. Like, I was so interested in her story. Like, you know, how do you, as a lady, like, first of all, there's not even really any horses in Greenland. And here you are, a lady, and you're like owning this horse travel business, you know. So I wanted to hear from her, like, how did you start this business? How did you come up with it? And so I just traveled around interviewing a whole lot of super cool women for our podcast, for our, you know, film series, for our books. And I just love sharing their stories. So that is what I am most fascinated by. I love going, like I said, to the one of my favorite places, Bhutan. They didn't even have horses, horse riding in this country until 2013, the first time that I went there. They actually invited me out there to kind of train the horses. They never had a rider on them before. They brought me out. They're like, we want to make a trail company. I was like, all right. So I went there, and of course it's all men. And here I am, a like 22-year-old, you know, blondie girl. And I'm like, I'm in charge now, and you have to do what I say. And we were just like, you know, training these horses how to be ridden and how to steer. And we were testing the trails. We were riding up and down, you know, the Himalayas. And it was just so much fun. And I really fell in love with Bhutan. So that is a country that I'm like, you know, now there's a horse riding program there, which is awesome. But also, like,
because
now,
of you.
Yeah, and now for the first time ever, I went there again twice. So I went there again, I think 2 years ago, and then last year. And there was a girl, a Bhutanese girl, riding one of the horses that I had trained like years ago. And it just like melted my heart. Like, oh my God.
Yeah,
like
great.
There was never a woman to ever sit on a horse in this entire country. And like, it's all because of me. And because of these like people in Bhutan. Like, how cool is that?
Cool. That is so cool.
So yeah, that's kind of my passion and my interest is getting ladies to ride and to kind of share with the world these like really unique, awesome places that most people just don't really know about.
So I have a confession to make. Before we speak to Scott and of course Jose, both of them are good friends. Cavago is indebted to all of you, and I'll explain why. So I'm one of those horse crazy kids. Grew up in a small city in Saudi Arabia. Rode mostly Arabians, and then went to boarding school in England. And some of your blogs I would follow. My previous career, and I think they're so cool. They get to go around the world. They take great pictures of horses. Like, that's what I'd love to do. With a little bit of a background in tech, I realized I don't want to write a blog because you guys are so good at what you do. So why not make a platform so that everybody around the world can book a riding experience like that, right? No different to an Airbnb. So really, the inspiration of Cavago has actually come from all of your incredible work, which is in many ways why I'm so delighted to actually speak to you in person. I've said this to Caroline before, and I think Becky. I might have been the spark that started Cavago, but really, you guys are the true flame of Cavago, or true flame of horse lovers across the board. And we literally, we're all horse lovers, and that's it. That's what Cavago is formed for. So I'm absolutely delighted to actually speak to you and have this conversation, and I think it's going to be a cool conversation. The other thing I want to share with you is, so growing up in Saudi Arabia, you have to keep in mind that it's a small city, a military city, right? And for some reason, at this equestrian center, you get these big, thick magazines, Arabian Horse World. You may remember that, right? And as like a 10-year-old, I flicked through these magazines and look at all these magnificent Arabian horses, right? And I can literally reel their names off right now: Bass, Bandos, Padron, so on and so forth, right? And I knew their kids, those horses, like, that generation, the generation after them, the generation after them. And today, if I look at an Arabian horse, sometimes because of the blaze or because of the way they move, I can be like, yeah, that horse is probably related to Padron. And most of the time, I'm not that far off. And there's one person who took photographs of most of these horses. His signature used to be literally on half of that magazine, and he's in this audience. And that's Scott Trees. So when I met him in Dubai like 12 years ago, I was like, wait a minute, I know that signature. Is that you? Because he has done what we all dream of doing well before we dreamed of doing it. He looks super young, but he's not. He belies his age, right? And he's like a living legend because Scott, I'm gonna go on a limb here. Like, you made your millions taking photographs of horses. Correct me if I'm wrong.
I did all right.
There you go. So with that, I want to introduce to you one of my idols. He calls me his brother. He says
Brother from another mother.
Brother from another mother. And he's definitely the better looking brother.
Yeah, definitely. You got the brains, I got the looks. There's no question.
So with that, Scott, maybe to kick this off, can you tell us about your story? Because it was an inspiration for a generation right after you who loved your photographs, and Instagram is indebted to you in many ways too.
Well, let me get my teeth in and see if I can get the story going for you here. I'm really one of the lucky ones that came along at the right time. And like a lot of you, I grew up with horses. My mom had world champion saddlebreds. My brother had world champion quarter horses. And I learned how to ride on a full brother of a great saddlebred mare by the name of Lady Kerrigan. And his name was Brother Tom. And he had such a sensitive mouth that they wouldn't let me have a bridle with him. I had to ride him with a string. And I did that the first 4 years of riding a horse. I started riding when I was 3. And so I finally, at the age of 7, I said, look, I've had it with this horse thing. I want to play football and baseball and play with my friends, and I'm done. So about 13, I went to a 100 jumper show and realized that there were a lot of really good looking ladies running around there and not many guys. And the whole thing took on a whole other meaning to me. And so I actually started riding hunters and jumpers. And then my mother and my stepfather got involved with Arabian horses. And then I went to college. Was going to be a vet, and then I realized I could put a person to sleep easier than I could a dog. So that came to a screeching halt. And I switched my degree to psychology, and I picked up a camera when I was a sophomore in college. And the bug bit me. And I think the bug that bit me was the black and white element of it, the darkroom work. And I don't know if today it would have bitten me quite the same way, but I just love the whole process of developing the film, and I still love shooting black and white for myself. And I've used it a lot on a lot of assignments too. So I graduated with my degree in psychology while I was in school. And again, back in the film days, when I was shooting film, and it was expensive. And so I wanted to pay for my hobby. So I started a party picture for fraternities and sororities in college. Made a killing and paid for school, and graduated with my degree in psychology, but knew I wanted to be a photographer. Bought a very small studio from a guy that was retiring. I mean, the studio itself was about the size of a postage stamp, but he was a family contract for a portrait company and you had to upsell. And so I had a neat yard at this place I bought. So I started shooting the kids outside. This would have been in 1972. And, it did well, but I realized that a portrait shooter makes all his money in 3 months, basically in the fall. So in the meantime, I'd been photographing horses for my mom. She'd asked me if I'd come photograph some of her horses, and word kind of got out that I had a knack for it. Polly Knoll called me one day, who was an incredible photographer here in the United States. And she asked me if I would do a horse show that she couldn't do. And so I said, sure. It was in Pueblo, Colorado, which was very hot. In those days, you turned out black and white prints on the showground. And so I hired a friend to come print. We rented the trailer with no air conditioning. It was 106 outside during the day and about 100 and something during the night. We sweated day and night, didn't sleep for 3 days. And that was my foray into the horse world. And in those days, you used to put headshots are what you did in the ring, and you'd put ovals around them. And so we're driving back to Fort Collins, and we haven't slept in 3 days. And I'm hallucinating. I'm seeing negatives with these horse ovals around them. And Tom pulls over, and I said, what's the matter? And he said, man, I'm having the damnedest time. I'm hallucinating. I'm seeing these ovals with these horses on their heads. So anyway, that got me started. And I was doing shows. Didn't enjoy them, to tell you the truth, but it was a means to an end. It got my name out there. Then I came home from a horse show one day and uttered the famous last words, I'm done photographing horses. That's it. I was doing, and the other side of it, a lot of people don't know, I've always had a commercial side to my business, and I made more of an effort toward the commercial element of what I was doing. I was giving presentations back then, and a guy in Dallas, Texas saw one of my presentations, which was then, it was slide projectors, three projectors dissolving, all that stuff. And he said, you've got a great eye. Have you ever thought about shooting film? And I said, I'd love to. So he started flying me out to Dallas from North Carolina. And I started shooting 16 millimeter film projects for him. And he got involved with, he had a big company and he had an advertising wing, and a very prominent farm in Lancer Arabians was having a dispersal sale. And they hired me to photograph their horses for the sale. And they asked if they could to do something different. And then something different was turning them loose, because in the Arab industry, it was all headshots and body shots, page after page after it. And my approach from working with commercial art directors was that if you're going to use a picture, it's got to get attention. And so loose was a novel concept. And I'm sure if I saw the catalog today, it would horrify me, but it started me. And about that time, the Arab industry started on a meteoric rise that, eventually it was, here is the Arab industry and here is everybody else. So I came along with a different style. I was taking horses in out of context situations, turning them loose in different places, bringing them into studios, renting fog machines. I mean, it was amazing, because pretty much anything I could conceptualize I wanted to do, somebody would pay for it. And about that time, I also started a video production side to the company, and built that into the largest independent production facility in Western North Carolina. At the time, we had a lot of commercial work, but also a lot of horse work. And so I was too young and too stupid to realize it wasn't going to last forever. And the tax laws changed in the United States, and my little empire came crashing down around my ears. I got divorced, and I had cancer. Dealt with all that, and learned that you can knock me down and I'll get up. But as you get older, you don't get up quite as fast, but I'll get up. And so, I really have been fortunate. I've been all over the world. I've been, they say, do what you love and everything else comes. And be real honest with you. It wasn't that I set out to be a horse photographer. Equine photography allowed me to be a photographer. And so I have to say, I'm not necessarily passionate about photographing horses. I'm passionate about photography. And I had a situation growing up with horses. Oops. Oh my God, my lighting's off. Just a second. I'm using a light.
For photographers speaking.
Growing up around all these great show horses that I did, and we had great horses, and I'd get attached to them, and they'd sell them, or the trainer wanted them, and I sort of built up this emotional barrier to myself. And my ex-wife bought me a horse as a president that was part Belgian and part traveling salesman named Lucky Dollar, and he was a real character. I mean, a true character. And he opened me up emotionally again, and I lost him in a really freak accident. And I lost a part of myself with him that I've never gotten back, and that's the desire to own another one.
Oh.
So I figured out a way to enjoy horses. I've been able to get the best the world. I get to see the best the world has to offer. I get to try and make them perform at their best. And at the end of the day, I can walk away from it. And it worked for me. Not that I don't love them. I love them. I respect them. I'm a horseman first and foremost. But there was it left a pretty big hole in me. But losing him fostered my style of shooting. And I think people say that my pictures are emotional. And so it was his loss that fostered my style. And it's been good. As you know, I was in Dubai for 8 years, Taz, with you guys. We're doing stuff we did, and you know, I'm still I'm 70, and it's hard to believe, but I've been at this 5 decades, and you know, I'm still grateful I can still do it. But it's gig. It's been a wonderful ride, as they say.
That's so incredible. So I have whilst we all have questions for each other. This is designed to be an interactive forum. I want to hear from each of you, and I want to ask you, what is your favorite place?
Favorite place?
Across the board, equestrian favorite place.
Tuscany Valley, Italy.
Why?
It. Love the light. Love the light. Love the art. Love the color. Love the textures. I mean, I think it's fair to say for me, sometimes my favorite place is where I happen to be shooting that day. I actually got to do a video that wasn't horse related, but up in Canada, where I was able to do for this resort where I was shooting whales and Kermode bears and all kinds of stuff. But horse wise, you know, oh man, it's hard to narrow in for me. But I mean, as far as a region, Tuscany for the light, and the sombrero ride that I do every year is probably every year that I've done it has been probably one of my favorite places to be, because I've never seen anything like it. I was in communist Russia shooting. I saw large herds of horses, maybe 300-400. In Poland, same thing.
You need to come to my.
You guys need to go to Jose's place.
Oh, good. Well, I would love that, but what they do is the Sombrero Ranch they feed out horses to dude ranches throughout the southeastern United States. They started out with 8 horses. They now have 2,000 horses, and they're just great horses. They don't want mares. They don't want foals. They have no stallions. And so what they do is in all honesty, Corinne Schiffer's of Equine Network organized the workshop. I lead the workshop, and they bring in about 100 horses to 150 horses for me at the beginning of the week to set up shots for my students. So I'll have like 100 horses coming at them in a dead run through water. And one time they were complaining they weren't close enough. And so I told one of the wranglers I knew real well, I said, listen, when you come through this time, drown them. And so he missed him by about that far with his horse, and they were just covered. And I said, was that close enough for you guys? Was that good? But the neat part is at the end of it, they bring these horses 62 miles from their winter pastures to their spring ranch over a 2-day period of time. And the smallest herd we've had is 650 head. The largest was 1,250 head. And to see that many horses together, and they come the first 25 miles, they come through a real picturesque part of Colorado. The last 25, they come right down on Highway 40 in Colorado. And it changed me. I admittedly, I've always said I'm an advertising photographer that happens to specialize in horses. And most of that was with show horses. And so the sombrero horses changed me. It definitely was good to get to see horses be horses again. So probably of all the places I go and that I've been repeatedly, that definitely is high on the list for me.
Awesome.
That sounds amazing.
It is. It is a lot of horses, and you know, it's not just the sight; it's the sound.
Yeah, up there.
You know, the nickering for each other, and you know, when they come across, and the first 5 miles of the drive, they gather the horses over like all morning and gather them in a corral. And these horses have done it before. A lot of them have. And so the first 5 miles, they've got the energy and they kind of go hell bent for leather. 1 year, they lost control of the herd, and we follow them in trucks, and we were going 40 miles an hour, and there was a cowboy telling us, "Get out of here, get out of here." They were catching up with us, but what they do is these herds do this, and they have to cross a bridge, so the whole herd does this, and you'll have horses like 150, 200 horses at one time coming across that bridge. And so I've gotten, if you see shots of horses, big herds of horses, there's one, I think I ran not too long ago. If and I'm going to put a new demo out on Facebook. That shot's in there. That they just come across, but they've done it before. And you'd think, oh my God, they're going to go across the bridge. And, nope, they don't. They got a lot more sense than you think. But it's just to hear them coming across is something else. And so if you love horses, you can't help but be moved by it, because it's spectacular. And there's one area in the afternoon where they spread out, and so you're just looking out into the sea of horses. It's amazing.
Scott, how many miles between the move?
62.
That's what I thought you said. Wow.
Yeah, so they go 28 miles the first day into the first overnight pasture, and then the rest of it, they're tired when they get there. And what's amazing is that when you see these horses, they've been wintering in their pastures all winter. They're coming straight off their winter pasture, and they're in good shape. And if they have any horses that are hurt or lag behind or anything, they've got trailers. I mean, these guys make money on these horses. These horses work basically 3 or 4 months a year, and the rest of the time they're on pasture. They're well taken care of. So if somebody turns out lame, they're in a trailer.
They sell the horses?
They take great care of them.
Jose, you're asking a question?
They sell the horses.
They
for
don't
what?
sell them. They rent them out. They use the horses for dude ranches and some people rent them for summer horses. And then the big heavy horses they use as pack animals in the winter for hunting in the fall.
I'm keen to hear from Becky. Becky, favorite location?
My favorite, it's so hard. I'd say basically anywhere where I'm on a horse is my happy place, but Portugal is very special to me. My husband and I have had some amazing holidays there, and as I said, he's not horsey, so he surfs and I ride, and that's like the perfect combination for us. We've yet to come to Jose's place. That will be next on our list, I think. Having seen the photos from your place, it just looks fantastic going down the beach on the horses like that. But yeah, I've been to some amazing dressage places, amazing show jumping places, and the horses are happy and they're schoolmasters, which just can't wait to show you what they can do, which is just fantastic. So yeah, anywhere in Portugal probably.
Jose's place is worth going to, because when I went there, he said, "Hey, do you want to ride the same horse Madonna rode?" And I was like, okay. So that's my claim to fame.
Sing, right? I didn't make you sing first.
I heard me sing, I'd fall off the horse.
I always say that. And I change the horses.
Now he tells me.
Yeah. It's my commitment.
So now that we're talking about Portugal, Barbara, you must know Portugal really well because you photograph in Portugal all over. Tell us more.
Well, it's going to sound a little bit cliche, but my favorite place is no doubt Golga, which is in Alentejo in the center of Portugal, during the horse fair, because you can see everything. First of all, you can see all of your horse friends together during a whole week, 11 days to be precise. You can be all together. Everyone goes to Golga in those days. So if you have a friend for the north or the south or whatever, it doesn't matter because you will be there. And then you see thousands of horses and people getting together after a year of waiting, and with little houses for the ones that don't know the horse fair. Little houses around the arena, and people stay there and they share conversations and ride their horses all night long and all day long. Not the same horses, of course, but they are going switching, and it's amazing. I wait for it every year, and this year was very difficult because we didn't have the horse fair. So yeah, it's a big cliche, but Golga during the horse fair. no doubt.
Can I just say, Barbara?
It's this big.
Sorry, I was going to say that I've gone there twice in 2 years, and it's the most incredible horse experience. Anyone who loves horses has to go to
Let's go
Golga.
there. Yes.
Yeah, throw your British Horse Society rules out the window, right? There's horses all over the streets. There's
All
people
over
drinking
the
on a horse. But during the day you've got this.
And
People from all over the world coming. It's a spectacle and a half, because it's a town that's, correct me if I'm wrong, Barbara, like nobody's there throughout the year except this first week in November.
It's not even a town yet. It's smaller than a town, and there are only a few people. Of course, two of the main breeders of Lusitanos are there. They belong there. But other than that, you can see people riding. They don't even go on a car. They use bikes. It's a small village. And yeah, during the rest of the year, there's mostly nobody there. It goes.
Barbara, do the gypsies come too? Do they bring their wagons, their horses and wagons?
I
the gypsy
saw them
crowd?
once, but it's
No.
not common. Not once,
Okay.
but you can see one or two each year, but it's not common.
But if I'm not mistaken, anyone can go there and tie up their horse and ride.
Anyone can go,
the
and you can have more than Lusitanos. You have Frisians, you have whatever you want, but mostly, of course, Lusitanos.
I think I featured a photo a couple years ago from there with the horses in one of the bars one night.
Probably.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Inside of the bars,
Yeah,
inside of the
hilarious.
discos.
Exactly.
That was my introduction to it. It's like, I want to go there.
Yes, when people ask me what type of horse what would be the horse of my life, I used to say that would be the horse that would be allows me to be with my friends, because in Golga, because normally we go to the bars, we stop the horses in front of the bar, and who has a horse stays in the horse and drinks on top of the horse, and the horses are all aligned so quietly, and who doesn't have is around the horses, and it's amazing. It's having a horse that it's calm, although you have thousands of people around them and noises and other horses. It doesn't matter if it's a stallion or gelding. It doesn't matter. They stay quiet. For me, it would be the best horse.
That sounds like a good night out.
A good week out.
Yeah, I just want to go to the bars. That'd be good. Ride the horses, and
It's a
when I was in communist Russia, we went back and they were having a.
And they go also inside of the discos. During the night, there's one disco. You can go inside with your horse, and the people
cool.
around dancing.
And sometimes they put wood on
the huge warehouse with the bar. But now it seems not organized. But now it's still start to be organized, because 3 or 5, 10 years ago, it's amazing. It's like a jungle, and now you have rules to use the horse, rules to dress Portuguese dress. And it's not seems organized, but it's organized.
Yeah,
now.
it is. And I was saying that they normally put some wood in the floor, so when the horse does piaffe, you can hear the piaffe of the horse. And then you have the Spanish ballerinas doing at the same time. So it's really beautiful. You must come, no doubt.
That'll go on the list.
And nobody.
I started to tell you, I was in communist Russia shooting, and Sasha Ponomarov took me to the back of the stud farm, and there's a sign that shows, New York, all these Portugal, all these signs everywhere in the very back part of the farm, and we were having lunch. And he started toasting me in Dixie cups of vodka. And I didn't want to be rude, so I drank the damn things. And there's a picture of me leaning against that pole, drunk as a skunk. And I had to shoot that afternoon. And thank goodness we were doing a series of a young lady swimming horses in the lake, and I jumped in the lake, clothes and all, trying to sew her up, and I did. But I tell you what, I couldn't drink vodka for 20 years after that. I couldn't get near the stuff. but he had me on my lips.
Oh my
That's what I got for trying to be polite. So,
But then you don't drink vodka. You drink quite a type of red wine. Name it aguapé. It's a kind of red wine.
I'll try it for sure.
Aguapé.
I think all of us need to go to Portugal next year to go
It
golf.
sounds like
Yeah,
it.
I mean-
I think we planted a good seed here.
Taj, you need to move the show there next year.
I think we'll have to do that. I think we'll have to do that. And right by the beach with Madonna as well, that's for sure.
So I have a question for all you guys, and I'm going to start with my own experience with horse photography. When I was 15, I was a trail ride guide in the south of France in Camargue, which is probably my favorite place because that's where I had all these first horsey experiences. And so there was, we were working, my friend and I, to make a little money for the summer. We were working in a place similar to what Jose has, where, so that was many, many years ago, and they were using bikes. So you had the trail riders, the clients leaving, and then you had the photographer in the bushes that, would come up and snap everybody coming by. And then you had the two teenage girls that were given bikes. And so they gave us the roll of film, and then we biked very quickly to the studio where the photographer made the black and white prints. And then as soon as he was ready, before the time they came back, before the end of the 1 hour ride, we biked back. And then when the clients came, I'm from Switzerland, and we south of France, they don't speak any German and French and everything. We were the cute girls, and then we would sell those photos to the clients, and that worked very well. And so here comes my question. The world has changed. The world of photography has changed absolutely amazingly. And then you have you guys, the bloggers who use all this, all these visuals and all this tons of materials that comes from everywhere. And then you have a guy like Scott that is the more the classic photographer. And I was wondering where and if there are rubbing points between that. What Scott maybe has comments to make about the quality of what's seen out there, and how maybe we can all improve what we're doing and what we're putting out there. I'm certainly not that great myself, but I thought that's like the world has changed completely, radically. And then you have Barbara, who is from a younger generation, and if I understand well, Barbara, you do a little bit what I used to do, but in modern times. And I'd like to hear a few comments about that.
Well, yeah, it's definitely changed. It's one of those things. If you walk into a restaurant and say, "Hi, I need a photographer," half the room will raise their hands. And the act of picture taking has become very simple. And as I always say to my classes and my workshops, picture takers are a dime a dozen, and picture creators are hard to find. And what I have found happen in the advertising world is that my competition is not necessarily other professional photographers. It's the wife of the trainer or the husband of the trainer that says, well, I've watched where he shot. I can do that. I can go out and buy that camera. And they spray and pray and hope that they'll get something. And so good enough has become acceptable. And I see that with people trying to save money. But that what happens to them is they don't realize that when somebody does hire myself or Stu or a lot of the other great photographers that are out there today, that their work looks that much worse when they put it out there. You're still advertising and you're still getting a shot, but it's, when I was shooting film, especially, when you shot let's say one of the classic shots I did, like of Barbary coming out of the fog, that shot had a pretty long shelf life. Today, that shot would have maybe 2 weeks at best, if that. And you'd get a lot of comment, and then it's like, okay, what's next? I mean, we're deluged with images today. And I'll be real honest, I'm glad I had my career when I had it. I think it's very tough for photographers today. In the United States, they now rank photography as one of the 25 worst jobs to have. It's tough to make a go of it unless you niche market, and that's where I think all of us are lucky in that we have a niche market where there is still an appreciation for what we do. But the general public, because of iPhones and because of the ease of point and shoot of a high-end DSLR and motor drives, doesn't think and doesn't give us much credibility for what we do. And I think it's made it more difficult in a lot of venues. And so and I felt it. I mean, I would be lying if I said I didn't. I mean, I've fortunately got a good client base, and again, I have other things I do that offset it, but it's difficult because what you're competing against is with people that are desperate to get their name out there, desperate to get there. I'll do it for free. And as I tell these people, that these youngsters that are starting, I say, let me explain one thing to you. It's real hard to increase your prices from free.
Exactly.
And the other thing that they don't realize is that they don't approach it as a business. And so they really don't, they think, well, I spent $5 for it. I'll sell it for 10. I've made money. And they're not. And so most photographers fail because they don't know how to price their work. And so it's very difficult out there for that today. And it's had a big impact. And so, I'd like to hear what you all feel about it, but it definitely, it's changed things for sure. Most definitely.
I can.
It's really interesting. Oh, sorry, Christy.
Oh, I would say my husband is a commercial photographer too, Scott. And so we've definitely felt it. He did editorial work. And so a lot of magazines, which were, our bread and butter, and they're just gone. Forbes is hanging on, Time, but it's completely changed in the past 20 years for us. And, he's reinventing himself and what I see, iPhones are great for equestrians because we just throw it in our pocket and we go. And you can get great shots if you know what to look for the light, find the shot. You still have to have that trained eye. Yeah. But the thing, that I notice so much is that, and Rick, says the same thing. It's just that the quality, the expectations have gone down so much because we're so inundated with digital photos everywhere, online. Yeah.
Well, I think the other thing I try and explain to people is it's not just how I take them; it's what I do in post. I mean, I use post-production the way I use darkroom and Photoshop. I mean, I've always said I use my Photoshop to enhance, not fix. But there's a reason why my work looks the way it does, and you as you're saying, there's just so much out there that's like, oh, here, take it, and it's
so from my perspective, so I am mostly on YouTube, so I do more videos than I do photography. And on YouTube, it's quite funny. Like I rode across Ireland with my 2 horses, and in the beginning, so I'm one of those, like, to me, film is kind of an art. Like I want it to look cool and nice, and so I have like a drone and this and a camera and a GoPro and like all of this crap, and like I can't even like explain how much film crap there is. Like it's an entire suitcase whenever I go anywhere. And it's like, I don't even have room for my riding boots. So I have to wear my riding boots on the plane because I don't have any space in my suitcase. And so we were doing this ride, my husband and I, across Ireland, unsupported. So no vehicle or something. Like we have 2 small saddlebags and that's it. And so when we were kind of debating, like, what kind of film stuff do we want to take? It was really like, oh my gosh, like I was kind of panicking because at the same time, like our horses and us, like we have to carry the weight. And so in the end, we ended up settling with a GoPro. We had our camera still. And then when it came to the drone, I was like, no, we have to bring it. And because, Ireland is gorgeous. And so we dragged around this darn drone for 2 months and we only used it twice. And, I was kind of kicking myself for that one. Sorry about that. And I was kicking myself for that one. And it took us 1 year to edit all of these videos. So there's 11 episodes and it's all on YouTube. And it's weird. So, I go and, YouTube is free to watch. And I go to start kind of promoting it to some people, and like, hey, I covered for 2 months riding my horses across this gorgeous country. Like, go and check it out. It's totally free. And I swear I had some ladies commenting like, don't go and watch her YouTube channel because she makes money with ads. Or, just kind of like weird things like that. And I was really surprised. Yeah. And to me, it was kind of like, the couple of $1,000s that I would have spent on, the drone and the camera. Like, oh my God, so much money. I can't even. And, the 2 months of doing this journey, and obviously I was doing it for personal reasons as well, but it's like, I got to pay bills too, and I think because there's this overload of like free content, there's all these Instagrammers and there's all these YouTubers, and it's funny to me, like the YouTubers, and it's just, their head talking, and they have like 6 million views, and then here we are with like the drone, and we're riding across doing this kind of okay, cool journey. And, it just doesn't get quite as much of that exposure, let's say. And so in the end, it was kind of like, you know what, we need to do a balance of both. Like, I do the high quality professional stuff for myself because I enjoy it. But I'm also just going to do some head talking videos and kind of marry the two. But I've definitely noticed when it comes to the mindset of people nowadays, because everything is free, as soon as you go to ask them, like, there might be some ads on my video, or, maybe we'll have you pay for such and such series, like the next time we do a series. There is a lot of hesitation in nowadays people, because they're like, oh, well, I can get all that stuff for free. Like, why should I pay for it? Right. So I think it is a definitely mental shift, because there's so much free stuff everywhere.
Yeah. So I find that interesting. Sorry, Becky, I was actually going to lead the question to you, because you're much more about the narrative. You're much more about the discussion, the story, and the content. So more from a blogger standpoint, it's quite an interesting little balance between the photography, maybe some video, versus the content and the story and the background. Tell me more about that.
And that was kind of what I was going to touch on, is for me, the images that I tend to put up on Instagram, certainly of my riding, which go alongside the blog, are very amateurish, but they serve a different purpose. Like, for me, the narrative is what tells the story, and the photos are there to bring attention to that on Instagram, because it's a very visual medium, but also because people want to see the horse that I'm riding, or they want to see the problem that I'm having with my position in all of its glory, or whatever it is. And I think the other thing to remember is the challenges around being an individual who's riding. You can do a between the ears shot, but it's actually very difficult often to get people to take photos of you. You don't often have people on the ground, or quite commonly what I'll often say is, can you video me? And then I'll try and take stills out of the video so that I can, show something of what I'm doing. And the quality is in no way comparable to the professionals doing this stuff, but it's all I can do to kind of, as I'm doing it day in, day out.
And it's telling the story. It's illustrating the story.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, that's it. I just have one thing. In my organization, I have 2 photographers and 1 drone. One guy operator with the drone every day, and there's people coming just to ride, of course, because they never ride in his life, but also to keep the video drone or the photos just for the section of the photographers. And now in this moment, we make a lot of money with the photographer and the drone. It's amazing, because the guy, the operator of the drone, even don't leave the stables. They stay there. The drone go to the beach and camp. And then when the clients finish the ride, we have two TVs in the wall, the stables wall. They see the videos, and they pay 40 euros.
And I completely agree. Like, the magic of going on these wonderful experiences and having that memory to keep is a beautiful thing. And like, some of the videos and photos I've got from riding trips I've been on are so special to me. I'd love to sort of turn it around a little bit and ask Kristine, because you've obviously gone from creating this phenomenon of life between the ears, And you've now, I think, developed as well a bit of a product line which sits alongside that and uses some of the photos from Life Between Years. Can you talk a little bit about how you ended up going down that road?
You know, I think it's just because I'm a maker. I like stuff too. And it's like, oh my God, these photos are so fabulous. You know, they need to have some other life besides just being, you know, on the screen, you know, and for 30 seconds and then on to the next one. They just deserve more than that. And for me, it's just really fun to make something tangible. So, you know, a lot of really all this stuff I just kind of started doing because it was fun for me. It's like, oh, well, I'd like to have, you know, a cool Christmas card this year. And, you know, because my day job is I'm a graphic and a web designer.
Mm-hmm.
So I can do all this. It's kind of, you know, what I do. I can put it all together and I can get it online. And so it's just kind of a natural thing to do. But if you know, for me, for the cards, it's just like, oh, these deserve more airtime, you know, than just being this ephemeral digital thing that's just gone. You know,
I think I would like to. Oh, sorry, Kristine.
As I said, you know, I have, I don't know how many on my phone right now, probably 33,000 photos, and that's just, you know, my old phone, and they'll never see the light of day. You know, they'll never be printed, and you know, it's like it's so different. And then under the bed, we've got a giant, you know, Rubbermaid thing of like all my photos from high school, you know, snapshots from the drugstore, and you know, it's so fun to go through those, and we won't have that anymore. You know, like kids now.
People don't make prints much anymore of their stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I was going to say that Scott talked about that he fortunately still worked with the analogic and a different type of shooting. And I used to say that fortunately I did too, because I started photographing when I was very little with my father that was a photographer. And so when I start making the most common problem that is we have nowadays, that it's shoot because you're going to be able to catch something, I go back and I catch my analogic camera that I have right there, and I start shooting again with an analogic to remember that you have to take time to compose something. It's not just about shooting. Of course, if he's running, you have to shoot a lot. But when you want to compose something, you must remember the analogic times. And that's when you do that, that's when you create something. Because you took the right time, to think, to compose. And that's why I don't worry that much, because about how many people is now starting to photograph, and the wives, as Scott said, I don't worry. Here in Portugal, I don't know about you, but because if you are doing things the way Scott did, or the way I'm trying to do, I don't know if I'm doing it well, but I'm trying to do, I have faith that people will recognize your work and your effort. And so I don't worry that much. Eventually, they can have the cameras, but one day soon they will call you and say, okay, I have a lot of pictures, but I need yours, because they are different.
Yeah, Barbara, I don't disagree with you. I think what they do find is that, again, I think sometimes it's a cost-cutting thing, and sometimes, you know, they get lucky. But you when I give my workshops, one of the things I make everybody do is take off motor drive and tell them they've got 36 shots to get the shot, and the assignment is a timing venue, and you would think that I had asked them to cut off their left leg, because it's like, oh my God, no, and you know how and it's like, you know, it's not, you can't shoot 36 shots at a time. You've got 36 shots, and when I shot medium format, I had either 12 or 15 shots. And I just recently got a neg scanner, and I'm going back through some old stuff. And I was kind of patting myself on the back as to how good my exposures were for film, because, you know, I scan the negative and it's like, well, that's pretty damn good. Gee, I must have known what I was doing back then. But, you know, and your point is that what I also have often said is you can teach anybody the technique. You can't teach the eye. And I think you're really born with an eye or you're not. You can refine it, you can develop it. But, you know, I've got a very good friend of my mother's, actually, that went to every workshop she could ever go to, said, I still can't see light. And she said, I still don't have an eye like you. What is it? And I said, well, it's not anything. It's not a conscious effort on my part. And I think all of you would say the same thing. When it's you know, I've talked to several photographers. Well, what is it? And so, well, it just looks right. And you can't necessarily put your finger on it. I mean, and you can technically break it down if you look at the shot. The lighting was so and so, the angle was such and such, perspective was what, you know. But you know, the challenge that we face with horses is that we've got that long to get it right, because that's about how long they give you. And so that's been the challenge. Unfortunately, I came along at a time when I had the timing with medium format cameras that I could turn horses loose a long time before anybody else was. But it is, you know, it is your style, and some people want it, but it definitely has changed. I do still stand by the fact that.
So I would like to jump in. I think there's an interesting conversation about in itself photography, but I think photography combined with storytelling, especially in the horse world, which is full of stories, be it an Arabian horse in Poland, be it fox hunting just outside of London, be it Portugal and riding Madonna's horse. There's something about the relationships and the stories. And I think when it comes to the art of blogging and telling a story with pictures, I think it's a lot more than that, right? And I'm interested to know from folks like Becky and Krystal, etc., who've sort of traveled, particularly taking time out, trying to get beneath the surface. What does it take?
So for me, like,
I'm into Krystal, definitely.
Yeah. So for me, I would love to actually talk about like when I was putting together like the book series for Equestrian Adventuresses, because to me, I actually really get sick and tired of seeing all of the beautiful photos on Instagram. Like, I don't want to see you on a resort, you know, by the pool. I want to know like the real story, because I've suffered in my travels, not just enjoyed every day. Of course, there's lots of things I love, but I've also had hail coming on me on a galloping horse in Mongolia, or, you know, I've had things happen. Like, I don't want to just hear about the good stuff. And so when it was time to put together like our book series for, I got a whole lot of stories from a lot of different authors, and a lot of them, they don't even speak English as a first language. So, you know, we had people like translating the stories and helping, and, you know, no way are they like, I don't know, perfect. They're not like, I don't know, a Harry Potter book or something, but these stories are real. And it's women, like, for example, there's a girl, a lady, her and her husband, they have 2 toddlers. And I mean toddlers, like 2 years old and 4 years old. And they decided they're going to ride across South America. With like their pack horses and their toddlers, and she shares like they had disaster after disaster after disaster, like so many disasters. I'm reading her story and I'm like, I would have quit like so long ago. And she's like,
yeah, I'll bet the 2-year-old was potty trained by the time
right.
you got
And you know, I don't have kids of my own, so I'm reading her story and I'm kind of like, you know, a little bit smug, like hee hee hee. And you know, it can't be that hard. But I mean, it's just, there's so many stories that these book series, and they're really like raw, true stories. Like, they share, like, they don't hold back, they share it all. And you know, I've been transported to places and things that I don't know. It's funny, like, a lot of people, they might think that I'm super tough or hardcore or whatever. And actually, like, I hate camping. Like, I'm not, you know, like, it's just not my thing. And so, you know, again, I'm reading these other people's stories and some of the things that they've gone through. And like, there's another girl, and she's 19. And when she sent me her story, it actually had emojis in the story. It was a disaster to edit her story. And I was like, oh my God, what are they teaching these 19-year-old kids? And so, you know, I had to like go and delete all of the ha-has and like LOLs and stuff. And anyways, but her story was absolutely incredible. What she did is she, her, and I think it's her aunt or something, and she's 19, and they just got some pack horses, and they're in the bush, like into the wilds of New Zealand for Christmas or whatever. and they're just kind of riding along, and they have like a rifle. They're like hunting their dinner, which like for me is hardcore. Like I hate camping, and there they are. She's actually galloping on her horse. They saw some ducks like swimming in the pond, and they're like, dinner. So they're like galloping on their horse, jumping off of their horse into the water and like grabbing these ducks. And you know, it's just like I can't believe. Definitely not that hardcore by any means. So yeah, for me, like I just absolutely love the truth, like the real stuff that's happening, and my face just lights up. I mean, as you can see, like I just get so excited when I hear their stories, and so it's very easy for me to share their stories, because I'm like, you know, this is exactly what I want. Like I have moments like this too, where I'm like, you know, at the time I was you know, looking around and I was all by myself, and you know, I felt like the low point of my life kind of a thing. But you know, looking back, like that was the day that I learned a lesson, or that was the day that, you know, my life changed forever. Like I knew what I was made of, kind of like I knew what I could do and what I could cope with. And so, you know, I think that's definitely been a fun ride for me.
That's so cool. I'll never see a duck in the same way as well.
yeah, exactly.
Becky, you were going to say something as well.
Oh, I mean, I think that's amazing. I'm in awe of those stories. I don't have any like that. But I think it's true. It is about showing realness underneath. And I think a good example, and it's similar to Krystal's in a way, is I recently had a small baby. And as part of that, I did a blog before I gave birth about talking to people, what's your experiences from real equestrians about getting back in the saddle after having a baby. And I think the things which those women were kind enough to share with me for me to put on the blog was amazing. You know, talking about the issues which they had with their pelvic floors on the first time back in the saddle and things like that. And I think that's actually where a blog can really add value. And, you know, real experiences from real people, which, you know, aren't glossed over and the Instagrammable version. They're, you know, they're what you need to know when you're doing those things, or when you're doing that traveling or what have you. And I think that's where we can really add value.
I would love to say as well, so on our blog too, I'm fascinated by very unique and interesting countries, and Yemen is one of them. So I went to Yemen. Everyone told me not to, but I went. And after that trip, I was still obsessed with Yemen. And this girl actually contacted me through, she had, you know, was forbidden to ride a horse her entire life. She's in full veil, like full kneecap covering. And she contacted me. She shared a small little picture in our group of her sitting on like the first horse of her entire life. And I mean, she was like, this was like the best day of my life ever. She's like, I know it was risky. Like you could actually be killed in her country for doing something like that. But she's like, you know what? It was worth it. And so she reached out to me, and I was like, I have to interview you. So we made like a blog. I interviewed her for our website. And, you know, I think there's a misconception. Like a lot of people are like, oh, I'm not as adventurous as you. But it's like adventure means something different for everyone. Like you don't have to be this hardcore. Like her adventure was that she sat on a horse for the first time in her life. And I interviewed her story, and it was so fascinating. And her story is one of my favorites, because of, you know, all of the things that she has to deal with that led her up to that moment where she's like, I sat on a horse and it changed my life forever. So I'm just like you, Becky. Like I love hearing everyone's stories, because everyone does have a story, and your adventure could be literally just like riding your horse in your own backyard. And you know, I have 2 horses now. I never owned horses until very recently. And, you know, for me, I'm now kind of experiencing what it's like as a horse owner. And all of the adventures that I've had with my own horses has just brought a whole new dynamic. All kinds of adventures just like outside the backyard. And like that for me is good enough as well. So, yeah.
Yeah, the beauty of horses.
Yeah.
So I must say, talking about all these amazing adventures, this adventure, we've kind of run out of time, even though I wanted to continue. So I think we will have to have multiple series like this. Honestly, I've really enjoyed the conversation, and just kind of going around the world, from Scott's stories in America to Barbara in Portugal, of course, Becky, Krystal, Kristine, and Jose. just can't forget riding Madonna's horse. But that being said, I think it's incredible. And honestly, the work that you guys do is extraordinary. And as I said at the beginning of this conversation, as a founder of Cavago, in so many ways am I indebted to the extraordinary, the fabulous work that you've done to make this tech platform alive. And I keep telling our team, we're not a tech company. We're a horse company. We're just harnessing great tech to make the most aspirational horse company ever. And I really must thank you for being on this journey. It's just the start. It's just the start. So I hope you had a really great conversation and a great time.
I enjoyed it immensely.
Really, really
Nice meeting all of you.
Likewise.
Yes. Nice meeting everyone.
Thank you, Taz, for
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. We'll do it more frequently.
Yeah, I'm game.
We'll continue to share really cool stories around the world with horses, about horse people, great imagery, drones, you name it. Because I think our content is really important. And I think one of my missions for Cavago is that we want to be able to pull out all these incredible gems. We were talking about Golga. When I first got there, I kept calling it Golega, and everybody's like, what the heck is that? It's because that's the way it's spelled. There are so many gems around the world, whether you ride a horse in Yemen, whether you ride a horse in Australia, Pakistan, Germany, France, Italy, you name it. And it's our job, it's our purpose to unearth them. There are literally thousands and thousands and thousands of amazing horse experiences around the world. We're the ones who carry those beacons. So from me, from Team Cavago, thank you very much. It's 3:15. I'm about to sign off. You guys are amazing.
Thank you.
Well done.
I've had the most amazing day.
All right,
Thank
guys,
you
you
very
all
much.
take care.
Bye.
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 Thank you.
Bye, guys.
Bye.